The cell door slammed shut with a metallic thunder that echoed through the hollow corridors of the county jail. The new inmate didn't flinch. He just sat down quietly on the edge of the steel bench, his head lowered, hands resting on his knees. To the guards watching, he was nothing more than a weathered drifter, dirty boots, unshaven face, and a silence that seemed suspicious. They didn't see a man with a story, they saw an easy target. The veteran's name was Daniel Cole. Years ago, he wore the uniform of the United States Army, carrying out missions in deserts and jungles most Americans couldn't even locate on a map. He had medals buried in an old duffel bag, scars on his skin, and heavier scars on his soul. But now, he was just a man who'd drifted too far from home, arrested for trespassing on private property when all he'd wanted was a warm place to sleep. The guards called him Ghost. Not because they knew his past, but because of the way he moved. Silent, detached, as though nothing in this place could touch him. To them, his quietness meant weakness. So they pushed. It began with the small humiliations, extra shakedowns, forcing him to scrub floors twice as long as anyone else, shoving his food tray back so he'd eat last. But then it escalated. A young hot-headed officer named Briggs made it personal. Briggs had the kind of authority that comes with insecurity, and Daniel's unshaken calm gnawed at him. One night during cell checks, Briggs smirked and whispered loud enough for others to hear. "Look at this bum. Bet he's never fought a day in his life." The other officers laughed. Daniel didn't respond. He just looked up, meeting Briggs's eyes with a stillness that unsettled him more than anger ever could. But Briggs, feeling challenged, doubled down. He started shoving Daniel during roll call, tripping him in the mess hall, taunting him in front of other inmates. What Briggs didn't know was that Daniel had spent years learning how to endure worse than insults and shoves. He'd been broken down in boot camps, tested in firefights, and pushed to his limits in places where silence and stillness meant survival. But there was another kind of pain Daniel carried, memories of brothers he'd lost overseas. He'd come home to a country that quickly forgot their names, to a society that didn't know how to heal the wounds you couldn't see. The drifting, the arrests, the aimlessness, it was all the weight of those ghosts pressing him down. That's why he kept silent. He wasn't afraid of the guards. He was afraid of himself. One night, everything came to a breaking point. Briggs and two other guards cornered Daniel in the shower block after lights out. They shoved him against the wall, mocking him, accusing him of staring too long, treating him like prey. Briggs jabbed a baton into his ribs and sneered. "What's the matter, Ghost? You gonna cry?" That was when Daniel's restraint finally cracked. In a blur, the man they thought was broken moved with a precision they couldn't comprehend. He disarmed Briggs, twisted his wrist until the baton clattered to the floor, and in two swift motions, had both other officers pinned against the tile, gasping for breath. His voice, low and steady, cut through the chaos. "I have buried men braver than you. Don't push me further." For the first time, fear flickered in Briggs's eyes. But Daniel didn't strike again. He stepped back, dropped the baton at Briggs's feet, and walked away, leaving them trembling. Words spread quickly among inmates and officers alike. Whispers turned to respect. Some of the inmates started calling him "Soldier," offering quiet nods in the yard. Even the warden took notice, digging into Daniel's file and discovering the truth: the tours in Afghanistan and Iraq, the commendations, the honorable discharge. The warden called him into his office days later, not to reprimand him, but to apologize. "You served your country," the warden said quietly, sliding Daniel's file across the desk. "And we failed you when you came home." For the first time in years, Daniel felt seen. Not as a drifter. Not as a prisoner. But as a man who had given everything and lost nearly as much. The guards who had tormented him avoided his gaze after that night. Briggs was reassigned, stripped of his authority after an internal review. And Daniel, though still serving out his short sentence, began to rise again. He started talking to the younger inmates, sharing his experiences, teaching them discipline, teaching them how silence could be strength and not weakness. Slowly, he became a quiet leader inside the Oz.